Hey y'all, and welcome back to the channel. Today in this video, I'm going to be showing y'all how to make Southern smothered pepper steak. But instead of using steak, we're going to use 1 pound of ground beef. And we're going to see how making pepper steak with ground beef turns out. So y'all come on and let's get started. Okay, in today's recipe, this is what we'll be using. We're going to be using some bell peppers, some onions, some minced garlic, some Worcestershire sauce, some bouillon powder, or you could use the paste or even the cubes, the ground beef, onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper, some all-purpose flour, and an egg. So now let's turn around here and let's start our recipe on Southern pepper steak. Okay, we're going to start by opening up our package of our ground beef. And we're using this big mixing bowl to get it started in. Okay, now to your ground beef, we're going to go ahead and we're going to add our seasonings. And what we have right here is our teaspoon of garlic powder, our teaspoon of onion powder, and a teaspoon of black pepper. And we'll salt it whenever we get our gravy mix made, because we're going to be using beef bouillon and that has a lot of salt in it. So I'm going to wait and see how it tastes before I add my salt. And now we're going to add our 1 egg, and we're going to add some of the Worcestershire sauce, Worcestershire, whatever you want to call it. Everybody calls it something different. We're going to do about a teaspoon of that. And that also has salt in it. And then we're going to do around a teaspoon of minced garlic. I like using this minced garlic. It gives it a good flavor. And now we're just going to take and we're going to go ahead now and mix that mixture up. Okay, let me get this off my hands. All right, now what I'm going to do to this bowl, I'm going to add my flour. This is just all-purpose flour. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and I'm going to make just little bite-sized pieces. Just like it would be if you were cooking a piece of little steak tips. That's what we used to call them. Just like you would do if you was cooking a beef tip. Whenever you buy them and they're cut up into little beef tips. Used to years ago when me and Travis used to go to Golden Corral, if any of y'all remember that restaurant, I believe that was the name of it, that's what we used to get. Beef tips with peppers and onions and brown gravy. I don't even know if there's any more of those still open much around. But I think it was called Golden Corral. But we're just going to take these and make them into the little bitty bite-size tips is what we're going to call them. Let me get all these done and I'll bring y'all back. Okay, we've got them all made up now, and we tried to keep them around the same size, that way they'll cook at around the same time. So now let's go ahead over here and we're going to add a little oil to our skillet just to get them started. Not much, just a tiny bit, because that ground beef's going to put off some too. But I don't want them to stick with that flour on them until they get to cooking good. So we're going to add just probably 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start adding our little ground beef tips to it. They look like meatballs. Well, that one over there is a little bigger. I should have made that one just a little bit smaller. I made a mess, that's for sure. I can't cook without making a mess. We're going to let these get a good golden brown on all the way around. So we'll have to flip them after they start cooking. Okay, we're going to go ahead and start turning these over because they're getting a good crust on them. This right here is going to be a cheaper way to try to get smothered pepper steak using ground beef. Because groceries are so expensive right now. Regular steak is high, ground beef's high, but it's a little bit cheaper. So we're just trying this to see how they turn out. They're smelling good, y'all. I think they're gonna be good. And you can see that ground beef is cooking out more grease. So I may have to drain some of that grease out of there once I take my beef out. Now, if you had a bigger family, this right here is just like a small batch recipe because it's only Travis and myself. You would probably have to use, 2 pounds of ground beef to make it go further. But this right here is like a small batch cooking recipe for just Travis and myself, using 1 pound of ground beef. Just turn your meatballs on all the sides to get them good and crispy. You want that good crust on them. Some of them you may even have to stand up like that to get that crust on the sides of them. And to make sure you get them cooked all the way through. A pretty golden brown crust on them. And that's what I wanted to do with that flour. Okay, I've got them done, so now I'm going to take them out and we're just going to set them over here in this little pan right here. Try to be real easy with them so they don't fall apart. And that way you'll keep your little shape. This recipe turned out great. If you're looking for something to do with that 1 pound of ground beef, I highly recommend trying this. Travis loved them. But y'all look at there how pretty battering that ground beef came out to be. That made a real pretty crust. Okay, we're going to drain just a little bit of this. I don't want all that in my peppers and onions. Okay, I drained some of that, so if I need a little bit more, I'll just add, whenever I get ready to add my flour, we'll add a little bit back to it. But for right now, I drained some of our onions and our peppers. Right now, we're going to go ahead now and get these peppers and onions cooked down. it'll take them just a minute because when I put them in there, they were froze. So it'll have to bring that temperature back up. Okay, they're starting to cook now. And the pretty colors are coming out in those peppers and onions. We got the red peppers and the green. Okay, now I've got my peppers and onions about where I want them. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to take our flour that we had left over. And we're going to just cover the top of them. Not a lot. We're just going to use probably around 2 teaspoons. Maybe a good heaping, 2 teaspoons of our leftover flour. And now we're just going to give those a mix. And let them start cooking down in that flour. Just let this cook for around 2 to 3 minutes. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 cups of water, or ever how much we need, just to cover the peppers and onions. And then to that I'm going to add a teaspoon of my bouillon powder, my beef bouillon powder. And that right there is what's going to give y'all a good flavor in that sauce you're trying to make. And now we're just going to let that cook for a few minutes. And to that I am going to go ahead and add about a teaspoon of my total seasoning. I like this stuff. I love cooking with this. Y'all can get it pretty much anywhere. And we're going to add a little bit more black pepper. And now to that, we're going to go ahead and add our meat back in this. Whoop, come back here. We got to get that. I ain't losing one. Okay, there's a leaf and there's a piece. Move this out of the way. And now we're just going to ease that sauce all over our beef. Try not to break it apart. So we'll still have our beef tips. That's gonna be good, y'all. I bet Travis is gonna like this. I hope he does. But now we're gonna let that simmer for around 15 minutes. I'm gonna cut it down just a little bit and let them sit there and simmer. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and put me a lid on it while they're simmering for around 15 minutes. Oh, they look pretty good, y'all. See the peppers and the onions in there? We're trying to make smothered pepper steak using our ground beef to save money, but still make it delicious, quick and tasty. I think that's a quick dinner and it's going to be real tasty. Okay, let's service up some and see how it looks. Just gonna get a little in this plate so y'all can see how it turned out. Looks pretty good for using 1 pound of ground beef. Okay, I'll cut one so y'all can see how it turns out. And we made sure that we got our meat good and done. It's tender. Our peppers still have a little texture to them, and that's how I wanted them. And now, let's try it. This is one way to have smothered pepper steak. I say that's a win, don't y'all? I think Travis is gonna love it.
Y'all, does that not just look delicious? Okay, y'all, that's the end of this video on how to use 1 pound of ground beef, making smothered pepper steak.